Welcome to Surrender School.
Our mission statement, we should all know it by heart by now, shouldn't we? At Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do try to adhere to the spirit of the traditions. If Surrender School has helped your recovery in any way, please consider donating. We have Zoom costs, we have website hosting costs, we have insurance costs, and we will have costs related to the upcoming retreat. I think it'll be next summer, not this coming summer, but the next summer, 2026. Okay. Let's take a moment, bring ourselves into the room, let everything else go from today and what tomorrow will be, and just be present. Take a couple of deep breaths. Feel your feet on the floor. God, help us to set aside everything we think we know, to leave space for what we have yet to learn. All right, I will stop sharing. Okay. Today's topic is willpower. All right. As compulsive overeaters and food addicts, we have problems with still believing that abstinence is all just a matter of willpower. Despite being told over and over again, reading it in our literature over and over again, that that is not true. I think, I thought about this a little bit, and I think this is because, unlike other addicts, we really have to deal with we have to interact with, not even deal, but interact with our substance 3 times a day. So we have to manage getting a tiny little effect from our meal, from the food at our meal. It's all abstinent food, but it still gives us a tiny little bit of effect. So we have to manage getting that tiny little bit of effect and then stopping and not eating anymore at that meal. It just seems natural to try and do that through our willpower. Okay, so of course, this kind of leads to trying to use our willpower in all kinds of food-related places. So let's back up, as I like to do. What is willpower anyway? What is willpower? In a nutshell, the definition is the ability to resist short-term temptations in order to meet long-term goals. It's the capacity to override an unwanted thought, feeling, or impulse. We've all been to the nutritionist who has no idea what food addiction is or compulsive overeating, and she helpfully tells us to, put a picture of, a woman in a swimsuit for motivation up on your refrigerator. And, and of course, that never worked. But in their mind, it's willpower. It's that short-term, resisting that short-term temptation for the long-term goal we want. That doesn't work with an addiction, not at all. And in our culture, this is where some of the shame sneaks in, I think. In our culture, lack of willpower is often seen as the biggest barrier to change. So when people see us and we're still obese, or they, see us take a second piece of whatever, of course, not knowing that we're going to be stopping for fast food on the way home, but they're seeing us take this second piece, and they're thinking to themselves, she has no, the willpower. She needs to engage that willpower. as if that is what's going to change. And in other areas of our life, we use willpower just fine, just not with food. Okay, since I am a nerd, I have looked into scientifically what is willpower. Willpower is a limited brain-based resource, and scientists have narrowed it down to a place in the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. Now, for my fellow nerds, that's right behind the frontal lobes, right in front of the corpus callosum, the thing that connects the two hemispheres of the brain. So it's like right in here. Willpower can be depleted. It is a finite source that can be depleted. Now, we are called on dozens of times a day to exert self-control or willpower over our own behavior. Totally beside the point of food. Being diplomatic when you'd rather punch someone in the nose. That takes willpower. Keeping your mouth shut during your in-laws' visit. That takes willpower. Showing up for work on some days takes willpower. Some experts compare willpower to a muscle that can get fatigued from overuse. So if you think of it like a muscle, it can get fatigued. But by the same token, you can deplete willpower, but you also can replenish it. You replenish it through mindfulness, prayer, meditation, exercise, sleep, and good nutrition. There are tons of things that we do in program that replenish my willpower. Things like meetings, my morning quiet time, reading program literature, listening to recovery podcasts. All of those things replenish my willpower. So if you think of willpower like a rechargeable battery, so you deplete it through use, and then you recharge it, so then you can use it again later. Okay. So here's something I thought was really ironic. Science has found that the main way to replenish willpower is through glucose, sugar. Well, that ain't gonna work for us, right? So we can't use that one. We have to use the other methods that I talked about. But the scientists have also discovered that willpower depletion can be kept in check or lessened by your beliefs and attitudes. I found this very interesting, particularly for most of us, and you'll see why. Okay. For example, people who exert self-control or willpower to please others deplete their willpower more than those who use their willpower in pursuit of their own internal goals and desires. That is why people pleasing is so deadly for us, because it saps us of the willpower we need not to not eat the second piece of cake, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but to set ourselves up for success around having to be around cake in the first place. Okay, I'll talk more about that. Okay. Making other people happy at our own expense is a first-class ticket to Doritoville. We all know this intuitively, but science backs us up on this. People pleasing is just one of the many lifelong conceptions we have to throw out the window, to paraphrase Bill W. We have to change our beliefs and attitudes in order to stop depleting our willpower and put our willpower to better use. I quite frankly, I was kind of blown away by that finding. Um, I have been a lifelong people pleaser. I struggle with it mightily. I still struggle with it mightily, but it explains a lot. It explains where, because that is also the major source of my resentments, is my people pleasing. That is the major source of the resentments that I struggle with. Okay. So, how have food addicts traditionally tried to use willpower? The big book on page 24 says, quote, at a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent, unquote. The big book is very clear that willpower is of no use to the real alcoholic, the real food addict, the real compulsive overeater. The minute we walk into a food recovery program, we are told this. We are told this. We nod our heads in agreement, and then we continue to try and use willpower to arrest our addiction. How do I know this is true? I know it from my own experience and trying to do it for myself, and also watching others struggle in this program. The fanatical fixation on food plans and weight loss are exhibit number one. The hand wringing over following the food plan perfectly and losing weight quickly is just the old diet mentality where we are in charge of what we put in our mouth and not put in our mouth, right? So, bottom line, we try to exert our willpower in order to follow the diet to lose weight. This has never, never, never worked for us. Why do we think it will work now just because we're in a 12-step program? It doesn't. We also try and use willpower in the moment of a temptation. We all know this absolutely doesn't work. We're standing in front of the buffet and thinking that our willpower will keep us abstinent and out of the desserts. That is delusional. We know that that doesn't work for us. We may, in the moment, not eat the dessert, but later we may have more trouble and we may wind up eating on the way home from the event. So, this is the wrong place to try to exert our willpower. We've proved that to ourselves 1,000 times, yet we keep trying to do it and demanding a different result. Okay, now, on the flip side of this, I have also seen people in food programs throw up their hands and declare that they are indeed powerless over food and that God will have to strike them abstinent. To me, this is just a complete rejection of willpower and a complete abdication of personal responsibility. We are kind of all or nothing people, aren't we? Yeah. Here's what Bill says in the AA 12 and 12 on page 40. Our whole trouble had been the misuse of willpower. Amen, Bill. We either tried to use it in inappropriate situations or we abandoned any notion of having any willpower at all. Bill goes on to say, quote, we had tried to bombard our problems with it instead of attempting to bring it into agreement with God's intention for us, unquote. Okay, so how do we do that? I think we can all agree that our higher power's intention for us is to recover and then to help others recover. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. By using your willpower offensively instead of defensively, that's how we bring our will into alignment with our higher powers. We install habits that support our abstinence that can run on autopilot. That's where we use our willpower appropriately. You use your willpower to set up your habits, set up your guardrails for yourself, set yourself up for success. And then, with your higher power's help, you're able to be abstinent because you're not constantly fighting the food and fighting the disease. You've set your life up as a support for abstinence. So, for you geeks out there, what I'm talking about is developing algorithms that run automatically in support of your abstinence. Remember when I talked about routines and automaticity the other day? Using your willpower to develop and implement, execute those routines that help you to make being abstinent more automatic. That's the proper use of our willpower. That is the place to use our willpower. Making sure that all food is put away, making sure that nothing's left on the counter so you don't grab something on your way by the kitchen, making sure that when I go to bed at night, I feel like I'm in fifth grade again. When I go to bed at night, I put out the clothes that I'm going to walk in the next morning. So all I have to do is roll out of bed into the clothes and out the door. It makes it really easy. That's an example. Okay. Daily, we replenish our willpower by engaging in our prayer and meditation routine. When we're driving to and from work or anywhere for that matter, we replenish our willpower through the routine of listening to recovery podcasts. We support our abstinence through routines of food prep, pre-weighing and measuring, so we are not weighing and measuring when we're hungry and we're starting to eat and we're trying to put our dinner together or our lunch together. Skipping certain aisles in the grocery store, praying before each meal, having a special tea after dinner as a ritual that signals the end of eating for the day. All of these things require willpower for us to do them. They are also the first things that start to go when we're heading toward a relapse. So it's the proper use of the will, the proper use of willpower. Because trying to use it in the middle of a food situation doesn't work for us. It's setting ourselves up for success, setting our lives up to support abstinence. That's where we use the willpower. Okay. I hope that made sense to everybody. The I feel I know from my own experience that when I start letting go of the things that I do to set myself up. So I'm using my willpower because it's not like it's necessarily fun to do all that food prep or make sure that I have X, Y, and Z when I need it or whatever. But it's so I have to plan, I have to think about it, and then I have to actually do it. And these are all points that my program can fall apart and not, and then it sort of naturally devolves and finally winds up in a relapse. So there's plenty of places we have to use willpower in our program. lots of them. And we have willpower to use in those situations. It's just around the food that it doesn't work for us or any addict. Okay. The question, I couldn't resist this picture. Is that the most hilarious thing ever? Anytime I have broccoli salad from now on, I am going to call it the sexy broccoli salad. Um, I absolutely love that. Okay. The question for today: in your past attempts at abstinence, where were you using your willpower? Did you collapse into all around helplessness and expect your higher power to do all the work for you? All right, we've got 5 minutes.
Thanks for recovering with us.